Hey Sam, how's it going?
Going well.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you made some time to speak. I know some important things are coming from FTX, so I wanted to ask you for an update on that.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, we've been obviously working on just a large number of different projects, and excited about a number of them, including the recent Blockfolio trading launch. And overall, it's been a really good last 6 months for us, and that's been true for crypto as a whole. But I think particularly been true for us. And um, I'm sort of really excited and grateful for that, and excited about the future. But I think it's also the case that like the reason that I got into this in the first place, um, was to figure out how I could have impact in the world, and that's true of a number of people on the team. And I think for a number of us that takes the form of of charitable giving, and it's something that myself and others do every year, and is a really significant part of our lives. And we wanted to find a way to be able to bring our users into that a bit as well. And so we're going to be, launching a sort of charitable initiative under FTX called I guess the FTX Foundation is sort of what it's, what we've been referring to it by internally.
Sweet. And there's going to be several initiatives, I assume, coming from this over time, but I know that there's a first one that's already planned. Would you mind touching upon that?
Yeah, totally. So, as you said, we'll see where everything leads, and I want to, get this in a place where it's doing real good for the world. To start off with, though, we're going to be using it to donate 1% of all, of all the fees that FTX makes, and I'm super excited about this. And there's places where you can do a lot of good with your giving, and not to say this is the only one or even necessarily the best, but one sort of example of this is if you look at ways to prevent malaria in a number of parts of the world, you can save a life for under $10,000, and that's that's worth a lot. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to contribute a lot of good, whether it's through that or through other things. And we're also going to be giving our users some feedback on this. And so, we're going to be having votes over where to give, over what to do with it, and sort of more over time.
Mm-hmm. And one more question on that topic, Sam, is I know that, being in the charitable donation realm for quite some time, you have a really good sense of which ones actually use funds effectively.
Yep.
And I would like to hear a little bit more about how that works in understanding when something is actually effective rather than when it's not.
Yeah, and it's obviously really important, and everyone sort of knows that some charities are doing a lot of good for this world, and some are doing basically nothing. And I think there's this popular conception of looking at how much money do they spend on their cause versus spend on internal expenses. And I mean, I think that that's real and it matters, but it's really missing most of the picture, which is, well, what is that cause? What are they doing with it? Are they spending on an effective intervention? It doesn't matter if they're spending all their money on their intervention if that's not having an impact on the world. And frankly, it's fine if they're spending some of their funds on internal resources if that's helping them really build out an incredibly impactful system. And so, rather than looking at just at sort of certain pieces of the process, I think ultimately what you have to do is look at what are you getting from this? Like, what is the actual impact on the world from what the charity is doing? And from some, you can do randomized control trials of them, right? If it's a health intervention, you can look at how it's impacting the health of the people who it's going to, and you can quantify that, and you can see for every dollar that we're giving there, how much are they adding to the world? And I referenced before, there are some anti-malaria organizations which for a single digit number of thousands of dollars on average can prevent someone from dying of malaria, which is really exciting. And that's not to say it's the best, again, because there's a really wide range of important things in the world, and often there are important ways to address them. But I think that the first step is to try your best to think kind of quantitatively and critically about it. And that's true even for things which are harder to quantify. If instead of a malaria related initiative, this is climate change, well, okay, you can't necessarily say, okay, this is how many climates it saved per dollar. But that being said, you can try and think about, well, how many resources is this initiative taking up, and what are the odds that it's going to have significant impact on the future of the world, and what would that impact look like, and then you can sort of divide those numbers by each other, and start to kind of scope, get a sense of the scope of these things, and a sense of like, oh wow, that's actually pretty big, we should look into it more, or like, look, it doesn't even matter if I'm off by an order of magnitude, that thing's still never going to be close to the best thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I'm really, really happy that we're going to be able to combine this initiative with yours and the other members of the team that have been focused on giving expertise on these subjects, because it really means that the funds that users donate to allocate, or excuse me, that users choose where to allocate, are going to make an impactful difference. And just so users know, a few of the different things that are being considered are vitamin A supplementation charities, deworming initiatives, malaria initiatives, climate change initiatives, and AI research initiatives. One last question for you, Sam. And I know this is a bit personal, but I wanted to ask when it clicked for you that your life was about giving and you realized that it was an important part of it.
Yeah, I think that I'd always wanted to find a way to have impact with my life, but hadn't thought hard about what that actually meant for a while. And so in practice, it meant nothing. I mean, it's not impacting my life at all. And then I guess in college, I realized that I didn't know what I was doing, and that I didn't know what to do with my life. And I guess the first place that I heard this was there's some animal welfare organizations that I reached out to, and sort of like talked about ways I could help them, and they basically said, look, Sam, like, we've spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to hire people who are really effective at some of the meet and greet events that we hold, and some of these other things. Frankly, you would not be at the top of our list. I mean, and I wouldn't think I would be. That's not never been known as my strength. And basically said, but I mean, given sort of your background and the quantitative nature, you might be able to find find a way to be able to donate us a lot of money, and frankly, we'd really prefer that. I mean, with that extra money, we can do a lot of good. And it's sort of the first time I was like, oh wow, yeah, okay. Those are sort of, you can do work directly for an organization, you can donate to them, and there's a trade-off there, and both are helpful. And often you just talk to these organizations, and be like, look, what's your trade-off? How many dollars would it take for you to be able to effectively replace me as an employee? Mm-hmm. And then just think about, like, all right, is that more or less than the amount of money I could make? Like, would they prefer that I go work for them directly, or that I go try to make money and donate it to them? And, with most of the places that I talk to, it's just absolutely clear, like, they, were way more excited about me as a donor than me as an employee. Mm-hmm. And so that was sort of the time that I first realized that this was actually pretty plausible as a path for me.
Thanks for sharing that. I mean, and it makes me, and I know so many others in the company, so much more excited to get to work every single day, knowing that there's this underlying cause behind everything. So thanks for that, Sam. Thanks for the update. Much appreciated.
Yeah,